going on, everyone? How we all doing tonight? So, I gotta turn that music down just a hair. Oof. Yeah. I was having some audio troubles. I don't know why. It was weird. I couldn't hear anything on my side of things. So, I had to get that adjusted. It's a new scene. Yes. So, yeah, that is a new scene. So that is the school waiting scene. So where's that at? Right here. Yeah. So occasionally this one will be the one that we see. So, and yes, we have the wizard's hat, as always. All right, so I think it was already kind of anticipated that I was going to be doing this stream. What's up, Valexion? How you doing today? Not much. Sick. So, well, welcome. Thanks for hanging out. We're going to be talking about the new Unearthed Arcana, the playtest number 4, that just came out today. So, pull that up here. So yeah, OneD&D playtest materials. We got the Druid and the Paladin. And we have done one of these streams for each of the subsequent ones. I was actually very, very hesitant on if there was going to be one for this upcoming one with the whole OGL thing. Now that's resolved, so luckily we don't have to worry about any of that. So we can just go back to doing the things we love. The music is a bit loud. And it's probably because I put it on a different channel. There we go. That should be a little better. Let me do a quick check. All right, we should be good with that. But yeah, so like I said, you know, we've done one of these streams pretty much every time that one of these has come out. My cleric one, I actually forgot that I even did a stream based on the cleric and the revised species, but I did. I actually had to go back and like rewatch it. Concerned with OneD&D, bad enough with all the 5e retcons. If they stick to only OneD&D from now on, it means every rebalance from now on will be a retcon. Feels like the potential for video game style day one patches is high. So obviously we can only take it based on what Wizards of the Coast has said, and I mean Jeremy Crawford is one of the main voices on this, of it being an evolution of 5th edition. I don't necessarily have an issue with it, because I see it more like what they did with 3.5, and basically this would be 5.5. There's a lot of people out there that say it's 6th edition, but it's really not. 4th edition and 5th edition are compatible only to the degree that you have to like it's within the same multiverse, or under the same name, but they're really two different systems. They're both D20, but they work differently. You can't really take a Paladin from 4e and drop it into 5e comfortably, whereas the stuff they're doing with OneD&D while there's differences in the different classes and how they're built and structured, you could still drop a OneD&D Paladin in with a group of standard 5e characters, and they're still able to, function. So, I mean, I'm not overly concerned with it. I think there's a lot of changes that we are seeing, but there's a lot of changes that they are like playing with. And we obviously won't know what the final looks like until they publish, the books, whatever, the new player's handbook and stuff like that. So, but beautiful thing about it, at the end of the day, you as a DM, as a player, it's your choice to, play whatever system you want to use. And that in itself is, the beauty of tabletop RPG. If there's something you don't like about OneD&D, hey, don't use it. There are certain things that I have liked about OneD&D that I have started to use, such as like the heroic advantage, that the new inspiration system. I think that's cool whenever a player rolls, a nat 1, on a roll, and they get inspiration because it's like that failing upward situation. The most recent, the cleric one introduced new Goliath sub races. If I get to them fast enough. Yeah, like honestly, I would have no problem with one of my players right now. Actually, one of my players does play a Goliath, but I'd have no problem with a player in my game playing a Goliath to start using this stat block. Like, this racial build is, I think it's fine. So, yeah. I mean, we're still awaiting everything. So we will have to see what everything looks like in the end. But we get a little sneak peek here and there, and that's the beauty of Playtest. So we get to look at stuff and review it with a critical eye. And I've taken some time to look at this today while I was at work, being able to read through it and kind of formulate some opinions already. So we'll get into that. Really seeing this much input along the way. They're putting out what they're planning and seeing if the community likes it. You got lemon tart snack on. Zingy. Well, Zingy's not even in here. Zingy's not even online. All right, so as always, I'm going to bring up 5e.tools. So this is the site that I use to reference all material 5th edition. So that is what we'll be using. And we're going to start going through this. Now, the main things that I want to go over is how things compare to one another. If you've watched any of these streams before, a lot of times I like to focus more on how the things compare to older versions of stuff. So that's one of the things that we're going to look at today. Unrelated, but a few questions. How many DMs factor in ventilation? Like, I can see the admittedly expensive and probably one-use potential of dumping a bag of holding full of dry ice onto a low-lying floor with a sleeping dragon. Okay, funny enough that you say this. I have actually utilized the thought, like the concept of ventilation, in campaigns that I've run. To answer your question of how many, at least one. There's at least one. I'm sure if a player said something like this, they might be able to work with their DM on some kind of effect. Now, the thing to consider with dumping a bag of holding full of dry ice onto a low-lying room with a sleeping dragon and just waiting it out falls under a couple things you'd have to consider. As a DM, if my player came to me with that, for one, I'd have to look at the area that the players are in. Is this a small enough area where a concentration of CO2 could actually build up. Now I don't know like what that limit is, like how much do you need to breathe in, but a dragon is gonna have massive lungs, so it's gonna be a lot. Not only that, but it very well also could just kind of blow it away, depending on how big the dragon is. Now, the concept of ventilation that I have played with in the past was a scenario in one of my campaigns where the players were resting at a goblin cave. So they had arrived there, had gone in, kind of caught these goblins off guard, but befriended them. And while they were there, a group of hobgoblins that was antagonistic to these little goblins came up and was basically calling them out. Well, the players told all these goblins, like, we'll stay in here, let's just wait them out. Well, there was an escape hatch that I had, there was an escape hatch that these goblins had set up. And one of my players said, do you guys have a way out of here? And the goblins were like, yeah, we do. We'll go through there. So they're like, okay, good. Well, when the goblins tried to go up there, the hobgoblins put a bunch of rocks over top of it and a bunch of thatch and mud, basically creating a seal. So when the players realized that, that was the point where they could smell smoke, because the hobgoblins at the front had lit a fire. And so what was going to happen is that fire that was at the entrance of this cave was going to slowly start to suck out all the oxygen in the cave, and basically smoke them out. So my players were able to handle it. They were able to rush out, quell the fire, and deal with the situation. But that was something that my players never really considered, was like ventilation inside of a dungeon. But I, as a DM, have thought of that numerous times. Actually occurred to me after watching a video discussing a time where somebody dumped. So yeah, I've heard of those situations where people dump dry ice into a pool and then go swimming because it forms that layer of CO2. But that's a very specific situation, because when you dump all that dry ice into there, it's going to sublimate and it's going to turn into that CO2, and then you're going to get in there and your head is going to be right where that CO2 is now starting to layer. So it's just going to kind of sit there heavy because it's in essentially a giant bowl. And if you've ever put dry ice in a bowl with some, with some warm water, you're going to get that layer over top, and that's what you're breathing in. I just don't know if you could pull the same kind of situation with a dragon. Now if a dragon was underwater in a pool and had its snout out and was just kind of like there and somehow held in place, and then you dumped a bunch of dry ice into it and it wasn't able to escape, yeah, I could see you arguing that it, passes out, falls into the water, and possibly drowns. I would say in a very specific situation, yeah. But yeah, it's I mean, that's a great question. But yeah, ventilation in games is definitely something, is something that some DMs do think about. Like I said, I know I have. Yeah, a creature will die if left in a bag of holding too long in any campaign. Really, any campaign. Bag of holding can only hold 10 minutes worth of oxygen for one, like, divided by the amount of creatures. So you have two in there for 5 minutes, 3 in there for a little over 3. It's also why I said sleeping dragon. Head would probably be near the ground Its sleeping gives plenty of time. You know what? What's the spell I'm thinking of? Shit. What's the spell I'm thinking of? It's not Tiny Hut. I know Tiny Hut is a... This allows air to move through it. There was a spell. There's a spell I could have sworn that it was like something where you could, like, air doesn't move in and out of it or something like that. Force Cage? No, Force Cage. There it is. Oh no, that's a 7th level. No way. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think it would, I probably, depending on how big the room is. So let me say this. Depending on how big the room compared to the dragon is. So if the dragon is sleeping in its lair and it, you know, only has maybe like 5 feet around it in any direction, and that is where its head is sitting, and it's low enough that that's where the CO2 would travel down to, yeah, I could say that you might be able to do that. You know, cast a sphere of silence so that this way you can move in and out of there without waking it up. You know, figure to have invisibility or something like that on the ready in case it does wake up. Yeah, I don't think it would be that out of place. Now, something that you could do, that would be an interesting concept, would be to use that technique to maybe flush out things that are living in underground holes. I could see that being a really cool technique to flush creatures out that are like hiding underground or something like that. Also, would a pelt made from a were creature be human skin most of the time and become furs during a full moon? I have argued time and time again with different players about how things removed from change, creatures that can shape change, how they are affected. And the specific ruling that I have always made is if you take something from a creature, you're taking it as is. So if it is a were creature, like a werewolf, and you kill it as a werewolf, so let's just real quick pull up a werewolf, because there's actually one thing that I need to see. So here's the thing. It reverts to its true form if it dies. So were creatures like were-boars and were-bears and were-wolves, they're going to have a true form. So pretty much no matter what it is, you're going to have that same aspect. So a were creature is going to turn back into its normal form, which obviously would then be human skin. Now, because it's dead, it's like there's the curse is no longer affecting it. A dead like a dead werewolf or a werebear will not change again during the full moon. One could argue that the blood from it might still potentially carry the lycanthropic curse, so you might be able to. I just had this gross thought of like skinning a werewolf's true form and like its blood dripping on you as you like slung it over your shoulders during a full moon, like hoping to become a lycanthrope. Oh boy. I like the idea of a ban on selling furs during a full moon to prevent complaints from merchants and customers. Oh, well, so yeah, I definitely get where you're coming from. you could, I don't know if prestidigitation is more, it doesn't really add something like that. No, major image is also illusion, so that wouldn't work. I'm thinking of like spells. You know, if we're thinking about this, we could go like transmutation spells. Let me clear off some of that homebrew on there. Transmutation, I think it's a little further down. No? There it was. Transmutation. So, I mean, I guess let's change this by level. What is the one I'm thinking of? It's not prestidigitation. It's not bark skin. Bark skin's kind of in a weird way, but that's just their skin. And it'll be that for an hour. I don't know if you could necessarily do that. Here we go. Height, weight, distinguishing features, make yourself look like another race. Okay, so this spell, for example, if you had cast this on yourself, alter self, gave yourself the appearance of a werebear, and then were killed, you know, yeah, you could do this weird thing. I'm trying to find the other one. Oh, polymorph, but that also is going to be you revert whenever you die. I would say you'd probably be better off like trying to prestidigitate gold coins to buy stuff and then watch them just like disintegrate after a few minutes, because prestidigitation lasts for an hour and you can have up to 3 of these. So if you're buying for something that's 3 gold, you can create an illusory gold coin, and you know, because a non-magical trinket, a gold coin could be a non-magical trinket. So you could create 3 of those, spend 3 gold on something, and then an hour later, they just vanish. Now, the other thing is, I don't know if it'll be on here. Actually, I don't know where I would find its stat block. There's I don't know if I'd be able to find it, but there's a D&D item called a golden scarab that is it's a gold bug that looks like a gold coin that eats gold coins. That's funny. Joe question, is a Yuan-Ti assassin a cold-blooded killer? Yes. Yes. That's funny. That's a good one. I'll give you that. All right, so Paladin Druid playtest. All right, so first we're going to start with the Druid. So that's the one that they start with. So first things first, as we look at it, we can obviously see this is following, I got to bring up these other ones just for reference. So as was discussed in previous, previous Unearthed Arcanas and playtests, they're going to follow a very similar setup. So as you can see here, it's still following the fact that you get your base class ability at first level, you get something at a second, then you get your subclass, then you get a feat, and then you start to get your like class specific ability, like the thing that makes you that. And then we're going to get another feat at 8th. We're going to get another subclass feature at 6th and 10th, another feat at 12th, one more subclass feature at 14th, your final 2 feats at 16 and 19, and then finally that epic boon, which again, I'm probably not going to discuss the epic boons because, for one, I think they're all self-explanatory, and also I don't really care for them because 20th level play is very weird because not many people ever experience it. I will discuss it in this only because they have finally changed something, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But as you can see now, one of the first things that should stand out is that there's an ability now called Channel Nature. Now, Channel Divinity is something that we have known for a while with classes like the Cleric and the Paladin. Well, this should make sense because we now know that the Cleric, the Druid, and the Paladin are all part of the Priest group. Much like the Bard, Ranger, and Rogue are the Experts, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard are the Mages, and Barbarian, Fighter, and Monk are the Warriors. So these are going to be the Divine and Primal Magic users, and that is why we are getting this new ability called Channel Nature. This is what is going to drive most of the abilities for the Druid, much like Channel Divinity drove the stuff for the Cleric. But beyond that, we have a very basic, similar design. You are getting that, you are getting the same amount of spell slots, so that has not changed. You still get them at the same time, so none of that has changed at all. Everything else is pretty much still normal. So 1d8 hit points as usual. Same saving throws. Same, pretty much everything else. We're not really going to have to discuss this. So what's the first thing that we get? Well, the first thing that we get is that Channel Nature ability. So on here, what this can be used for is this is what's going to fuel your Wild Shape. Now, Wild Shape came in at 2nd level on previous Druids, and the way that it worked was you had 2 uses of this, and you would gain additional uses as you went along. So with this, it was very open to interpretation with the original Wild Shape. So at 2nd level, you got to pick any creature that was a max CR of 1/4 that did not have a flying speed or a swimming speed. So if we look at this list, and let's just, where's it end up? Here. Let's just take away all of the homebrew that I have on here. And right there, 75. You have 75 options at 2nd level of what you can Wild Shape into. So that's a pretty hefty list. This is actually one of the big reasons why a lot of new players and why a lot of DMs steered players away from playing a Druid. Because not only are you trying to learn racial abilities, you're trying to learn your class abilities, maybe you're new to the system and you're just trying to learn the game. But you now also have to go in and dig into what kind of creatures you want to shape change into. I mean, do you want to be a wolf and get those pack tactics, or do you want to be a spider with a climbing speed? Do you want to be a riding horse? Wait, I don't think you can be a riding horse. No, I guess you can. It doesn't say medium. Do you want to be a panther and have a higher stealth skill? It was always kind of up to you what you wanted to be, but if you transformed into a cat, well, you were kind of SOL because you only have 2 hit points. But this was one of the big reasons why a lot of people enjoyed playing as a Druid, because when you play as something like a bear, which I don't think you can play as one with this, but if you take the hit points that are on here for most of these creatures that are larger, you now have just extra hit points. So you're going to be able to take more of those hits before shifting back. But now the way that this works is that you use that channel nature ability, and that is what gives you the ability to wild shape. So pretty much it's the same as a channel divinity for a cleric. You use this and it allows you to use one of these abilities. So with the druid, it's very simply, you use this, it allows you to use wild shape, you can change into it. But instead of having to pick this, from this list of 75 creatures, you now just get one stat block. So that's why it says on here, while in this where is it? Where did it go? Yeah, so you transform into a form that you have learned in this feature. You learn the animal of the land stat block, which I'm going to jump down to that so that we can kind of look at it and how it compares to some of these stat blocks we've seen in the past. But beyond that, nothing really changes too drastically. It's still a number of you can be in that form for a number of hours, equal to half of your level. So that hasn't changed. If you drop or become incapacitated or die, you drop out of it, and you can also end it early. So that's still a thing. So we're gonna scroll down real quick, and right here, these are our wild shapes. I love this. While these might not be combatively advantageous or martially advantageous to some of the abilities you get by having your choice of creature, the fact that you can now just make up the appearance of your creature is amazing. So like it says on here, you assume a form and you determine its appearance, selecting an example animal or just coming up with one. And you can also now have combinations of stuff. So if you wanted to be a druid that, I don't know, looked like a bear and an owl, almost like a thing called an owl bear, you could now do that because that is just a combination of two animals, and that's part of this. I can see players not wanting to wait for sea and air, especially for instance. So it doesn't matter because you would have had to have waited for it anyway. So players are going to get the ability for aquatic at 7th and aerial at 9th, which, yes, that is a little bit longer to wait for the swimming speed, but it's only one level later to wait for the flying speed. So you had to wait a few levels anyway to get aquatic and to get the aerial form. But you know what? That's kind of the design behind it, is having a swim speed and being able to breathe underwater is far more advantageous. And you can always work with your DM to, come up with something, but that is I don't mind these being where they are because these are very strong abilities. So, like I said, let's take a look at, I'm just going to compare the wolf. The wolf is one of those common druid abilities, or druid wild shapes that has been used all the time. So if we look at this, our armor class would be 10 plus wisdom. So even if we make a first level druid, we're probably going to have a +3 in armor class. So this kind of averages up with the armor class of the wolf. Our hit points is, you continue to use your hit points and your hit dice. So this means that while you're not getting this buff, this also means that you're not dropping out of the form early, which has always been a big issue for some druids. where before you could only take 11 points of damage before you lose your wild shape. Now you can maintain that as long as you have hit points, which is really nice, but it does kind of have that caveat of, you know, you don't have that to back you up. Whereas before, if I had 15 hit points and I could wild shape twice into a werewolf, that effectively gives me another 22 hit points. Idea: everything should have a swim and fly speed, but not be able to swim or fly unless they have an ability to know. Just in case a druid bear gets fly. Wait, what? If a druid bear had fly cast on it, it gains a flying speed. That's what the spell does. No, I don't necessarily agree that everything should have a swim/fly speed, but not be able to swim or fly unless they have an ability, because that's getting into a lot of minutia. Because technically everything does have a swim and fly speed. A creature's swim speed is half of their walking speed, because swimming without a swim speed is difficult terrain. And if you don't have a fly speed, your fly speed is 0. So you do, like, everything does have a swim speed and fly speed. It's just your swim is half of your movement and your fly speed is 0. So there you go. All right, so looking at this a little bit more, so we have a movement speed of 40 feet, which again kind of aligns with the wolf. The climb speed comes at 5th level, which I like that they add that, because that gives you a lot more options, you know, to have like a bear that's climbing and stuff like that. I guess my main issue is the quirky scenario if fish walking faster than they swim. Kuatoa and Sahuagin would like to have a discussion with you, because you know, they do have, I think they do have swim speeds equal to their walking speed. Yep, right there, Kuatoa. There's your walking fish, buddy. They walk as fast as they swim. So who can actually swim faster than they walk, so there you go. But Kuatoa will have a discussion with you. All right, so this is actually where something is a little bit different. So where does it say it in here? Yes, okay, so prior, in standard 5th edition, when you wild shape, you maintain your intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, but now your charisma stays the same as what you have. Your intelligence and wisdom are replaced. So, or yeah, sorry, no, my apologies. I looked at it wrong. You maintain your constitution now. So one of the downsides to that is when you start getting into stuff like a brown bear, when maybe a moon druid could shape change into this, or you're now an 8th level, this 16 in constitution is pretty great, especially when trying to deal with con saves. So I don't mind this, and I do get it, because it's less of like a magical change into that animal and more that you are changing your body into into something. So it's like, it is still your body, which is also the reason why it's still your hit points. This also is the argument of why you can also choose what it looks like, because you're not becoming a bear, you are changing your body to look like a bear and gain bear-like abilities or wolf-like abilities in the case of changing into a wolf. Beyond that, we have advantage on wisdom or perception checks, which I like that it's just across the board, because as you can see down here on the wolf, you get hearing and smell, and on the brown bear, you just get smell. So with this one, if it's vision, if it's hearing, if it's smell, you get that advantage on there, which I like. Oh, my ears keep popping. I've been having like stuffiness. You can probably hear it in my voice. You get the 60 feet dark vision, which is great. If you're playing a human, that's really good. And then you get your melee, you get your basic melee attack, which is now your spell attack modifier instead of just taking whatever the creature's ability is. So this is pretty nice. The damage is all right. You know, it's the same as a one-handed longsword, but at 5th level you do get to make 2 attacks. So much like most martial classes, you're going to be doing 2 attacks about that time anyway. I'm not going to go too much into the animal of the sea and the sky. The main things though that I want to point out here, once you get to animal of the sky, animal of the sea, which you have to be 7th level for, you are now getting a 40-foot swim speed and only a 20-foot walking speed. Your dexterity is now equal to your wisdom. So whereas before it was strength and dex are equal to your wisdom, now it's just your dexterity. So your strength might sink a little bit in that. You get a higher dark vision, and you can breathe in air or water, and you still get those 2 attacks, but it's a little bit less damage. And then finally, animal of the sky, same amount of speed, just switching swim for fly. Dexterity is still equal to your wisdom. Even farther dark vision, you're getting that 120 feet, which is again really great. Flyby, one of the best abilities for flying creatures, and then that same advantage for keen sense, and still 2 attacks, but it is the lowest die, so you got a 1d4 to attack, but that makes sense because you're just coming in like clawing or pecking or something like that. So really happy with how they did this, and I want to say the main reason why I'm really happy with this. So if we go back to here and we look at level 8, so let's say you're playing a level 8 druid. I didn't mean to click that with my mouse. I meant to click that with my middle mouse button. If you're playing a level 8 druid and you're trying to pick your animal shape, yeah, let me clear off all these unofficial ones. You are now having to pick between 158 creatures. You kind of have to know what they can do, what their abilities are, what makes one better than the other in a situation. And overall, I think the change will help make the druid more approachable. It is known that the druid is one of the least played classes in all of D&D. And I think a big portion of that is because of the barrier to entry when trying to learn that class. So I love the new design of it with how you can just, oh, I look like this and I'm now in the animal of the land. These are my new stats. I love that. Now, the one thing that I will be curious about is how they manage to do that on D&D Beyond. Especially since your stuff is now changing around. So we'll see. We'll see how that works, because that's a lot of changes for stat blocks. Whereas before, and this is one of the only nice things, it was very easy just to pull up the wolf stat block and say, okay, here's my new stat block for now. Also, druids aren't tanks anymore. I'm sorry to say. Druids just are not tanks. They used to be. Moon druids used to be really good tanks because of the ability to wild shape into CR creatures starting at 2nd level, and getting you know, higher CR ratings as you go up. But you know what? Druids, I guess, just are not tanks anymore. We'll just have to live with that. All right, so up next, Druidic. We're still getting the Druidic language. It totally makes sense. It's a first level ability, same with spell casting. Your druids are still prepared casters. You start every day off just picking spells from your list. You don't have to learn them or anything like that. You just know them. All right, second level ability. The old one used to be Wild Shape. I gotta get rid of these variants, getting on my nerves. So the previous one used to be your subclass. Obviously that moved to 3, so we'll get to that. But it used to be Wild Shape, so now that was moved to 1. But previously, now your second level ability is this Nature's Aid, and there's 2 ways that you can do this. And this is going to be very similar to this first level channel divinity. One of them is Healing Blossoms, which allows you to create an area, 10-foot radius sphere of a bunch of flowers, and you roll a bunch of d4 equal to your wisdom modifier, and then you can dole out hit points in that area to creatures of your choice. So in a way, this is kind of like using a a Lay on Hands or the Divine Spark ability, but being able to kind of divvy them out as you wish and having more of an area for this. Now, I will say that it is just, but in combat only. So I actually would not, I would argue this would not be combat only. So I know what you're referring to, because in my own games, Healing Spirit is a spell that I limit to in combat only. And the reason for that is because it's a second level spell that regains 1 hit point or 1d6 to any creature that starts or enters that 5-foot space. Not only is Healing Spirit a second level spell, which means that you can cast it with any second, third, fourth, fifth level. You can upcast it and increase that healing. But as you increase your spellcasting modifier, which would be wisdom, you get to heal people more, because it heals a number of times equal to 1 plus your spellcasting modifier. This being a channel nature means that you only get 2 uses of it. That's the key thing with channel nature, is that you get 2 uses per long rest, and you can get 1 expended use after a short rest. So with this, I actually wouldn't mind if a player was using this, because let's just do the quick math. Let's say you're playing a druid who has a +4 to wisdom. So 5d6 is what Healing Spirit would do in that case. So you're looking at 15 hit points. Let's roll it a couple times, and let's just average that out real quick. Oh, shit. You know what? Actually, let me pull up another site. My bad. Make life a lot easier on us. Here we go. 5d6. So let's go ahead and calculate. So 17.5 points of healing. That is what we're looking at when we're using Healing Spirit, because it's 1 plus your spellcasting. So if we're a druid with a +4 to wisdom, this is the average amount of hit points that we are going to heal. Now, if we have this new one, you know, and let's just even take this and say, okay, at, you know what, you get second level spell slots at level 3. So let's just say even at that point, you can cast it twice a day. So let's multiply this by 2 and just get a very simple 35. No. So 35 points of healing. Now, let's look at this other one. 1d4 or 4d4 average is 10. So obviously double that would just be 20. The difference between 20 and 35 is staggering. Now let's level this character up a bit. Let's say that they are now 7th level. You now have 7 uses of this spell, and it can be upcast. So in addition to using this, you're going to have 5d6 times 3 plus 6d6. Yeah, no. Wait, it's a number of d6. Restores 1d6 to that creature. Yeah, because it's 2d6 at that point. So this would go up to 10d6 times 3 plus 3d6. Or no, it would be 15 d6. So right there, boom, 210 hit points. If you used every single one of your spell slots at 7th level using all of these spell slots, that's an average of 210 hit points. Now, granted, you're never going to use that many spell slots to do this, but this is it. This is all you get. You get these 2 uses of channel nature. And yes, you can take short rests, but you have to consider you're not going to short rest that many times in an adventure to really get you up to here. You are on average only going to have those 20 hit points to work with. So Healing Blossoms, I say 100% use in combat. That's how I would roll it, because you get that small 10-foot radius area. You can duel out those upwards of 10 hit points, those average of 10 hit points, and heal up your allies and move on. Because unlike Healing Spirit, it also doesn't hang around for a while and allow you to move it and allow people to enter that space. So that's what I like. Not quite got my head wrapped around a magic action. Okay, a magic action is just anything listed as a magic action. So whereas before, right here, Wild Shape, starting at 2nd level, you can use your action. That is now classified as you can use a magic action. So when we go to the very bottom and we look at magic action, you magic something by casting a spell that has a casting time of an action, or by using a feature or magic item that requires a magic action to activate. That is what the magic action is. It is just the idea of like the help action or the hide action or the dodge action. The magic action is a specific thing. This is going to be very important because when you have something, for example, like Green Flame Blade, that explicitly states you brandish the weapon used in this spell's casting and make a melee attack with it. When this says you make a melee attack with it, this does not say make an attack action, because that, if it said an attack action, that would then proc for a say a fighter's attack, extra attack, because a fighter's extra attack only procs when you take the attack action. So This is why they're adding the magic action, because they want it to be a thing that is the trigger instead of it being ambiguous. All right, so we talked about Nature's Aid in regards to Healing Blossoms. The next one that you can use with your channel divinity or your channel nature is Wild Companion. So again, as a magic action, you expend a use of your channel nature and cast Find Familiar. And goddamn, do I have to say, the new Find Familiar spell is amazing. I'm not going to get down to it right now. I'm going to talk about it once we go through both the Paladin and the Druid, but we will get there. Needless to say, it's so much better. And so you have this until you finish a long rest or until it disappears. So up next, we have our Druid subclass, which we'll get to that in a second. 4th level feat, as we have come to expect. Whereas before, 4th level, we did get an improvement on our wild shape, but we did also get a feat. Now at 5th level, where before we actually didn't get anything other than getting those 3rd level spells, now we're actually going to get the Might of the Land. So the Animal of the Land form now gets a multi-attack and a climb speed. So that's really nice, getting some extra additional things with that change, with that wild shape. Then we got another subclass. Then we got our aquatic form, which we already talked about. Then a feat. Then an aerial form, which again, we already talked about. Up next, we get a subclass feature, which we'll get into. 11th level, Tiny Critter. You gain the ability to become a tiny creature. When you transform into a wild shape form, you can make it tiny. If you do so, you can stay in this form no longer than 10 minutes, and the damage you deal in that form is halved. I love this so much. The idea of being able to play a spider that is tiny is so amazing now. Like, you could do it before, but you had a 12 armor class and 1 hit point, and you had terrible strength and intelligence and all. And granted, like, these things were just transformed into yours, but you could now play a really cool tiny spider climbing along the walls of a dungeon, mapping the entire place out while your party sits safely outside, waiting for their buddy to come back. And you have 1 hour to do this. I love this so much. I love the idea that you can now become tiny. And granted, it only lasts for 10 minutes. And yes, your damage is halved, which it well should be. But this is just such a cool concept of being able, like, you could play a tiny velociraptor, or you could be a tiny whale if you do the sea one. That's just amazing. And it takes till mid-level to get there. It does, because it's a very powerful ability. Because the thing you have to consider about tiny creatures, I don't know if I can actually pull up the size chart on here. Might be able to. Yeah, so tiny, itty bitty. Where's the actual picture? They used to have a picture. Let me see here. There we go. So, I mean, if we look at something like this is what we're comparing ourselves to. This, you're so little, you can now sneak around. So yeah, it could be used to sneak in and out of places. You could use it to smuggle stuff, because if you wild shape, the things you're carrying suck into you. So you could take something with you. So I love this. And granted, it comes a little bit later, and so far we have not gotten, we're not getting those wild shape improvements like they were before. But you know what? Honestly, I'm okay with it. It does say no more than 10 minutes, but I'm guessing you can just redo it for another you could use both of your uses of it. Yeah. All right, so 12th level feat, 13th level alternating forms. You can now rapidly shift between a wild shape and your normal form. If you are in a wild shape form, you can switch to your normal form as a bonus action, and you can then switch back into that wild shape within the next minute as a bonus action. So neither of these expend the use of a wild shape. This is ridiculous, and I love it. So this is very powerful because this now means you could wild shape, say, into a tiny little bug, crawl through a keyhole to the other side, pick up some letter or a key or a box, and, you know, shape back, pick those items up, and then wild shape back into that bug without using that second use of your wild shape. This is incredibly powerful. I guarantee you there will be a lot of people that say this is overpowered, and I can understand that, but I love the versatility with this because you are only able to wild shape twice per long rest, and you also have other uses of your channel nature, because if you want to use Wild Companion or Healing Blossoms, you're taking away your ability to wild shape at some point. I love the fact that this is letting you kind of use that a little bit more. At 13th level, yeah, I will say that it's fairly powerful for what it is. I think 13th level is very appropriate for it. All right, so 14th level subclass feature, 15th level Wild Resurgence. When you use Wild Shape, Primal Magic radiates from you, allowing you to use Healing Blossoms as part of the same use. So this is great. You're turning into your animal form, and you get to heal somebody. This is great. I love this. We're starting to get up into where the Druid is really starting to get their powers coming out. They're getting more uses of that channel nature, and that's very similar to what we saw with the Cleric, where as you're going up, you're getting more stuff that you can do with those abilities, like the Divine Intervention, the Greater Interventions. You're getting more powerful uses of your abilities. So I love that that's where this is going, that it's just getting more powerful as you go up. And then it doesn't even stop there, because at 17th level, now you can cast spells in your wild shape form. Now, this has always been a thing where you can't cast spells while you are in your form, but if you already had a spell cast, transforming did not break your concentration of it. So if you already had Call Lightning cast, you could continue to Call Lightning down, but you would not be able to recast it. Now you will be able to use your spells at this point. I believe that there was a I want to say that there is a whatchamacallit, a subclass that allows you to do that. Oh no, wait, here it is. It's 18th level before. Yeah, that's what so that's what I was thinking. So at 18th level, you could cast your Druid spells while using in any shape you assume, while using Wild Shape. So you know, now there is there is a difference here. So, and it comes with the wording. You can the old wording for beast spells is you can perform the somatic and verbal components of a Druid spell while in a beast shape, but you aren't able to provide material components. So this means that any spell that a Druid can cast, so let's go to a Druid, and ooh, my neck. Where we at? I think I can filter by these. Maybe I can't. Okay, I can't filter by verbal, somatic, and material, apparently. I thought I have done that before. Oh, here we go. Material. So, all these spells that you see on here, polymorph, move earth, hold person, locate animals, these are all material components. As this, you aren't able to provide material components. So that's a thing. Now it says you don't need to provide free material components. If a spell consumes its material components, you can't cast it. So that's fine. Something like this is not consuming it. I probably wouldn't be able to find one that, you know, quickly enough that does have one that is consumed, but there it is. Yeah, Draconic Transformation. So this, you wouldn't be, well, actually, no, you could use that one. What the fuck? There it is, Awaken. So you wouldn't be able to cast Awaken in this new one, but you could cast all of these others. This in itself is very powerful to be able to still get those uses of those other spells when you're able to provide, you know, since you don't have to worry about the material components. All right, so up next, 18th level, you're going to get the Archdruid, which used to be the capstone. This is a very common thing we're seeing, where the capstone is moved from 20th to 18. That's because of the epic boon. So with this one, when you roll initiative, you get to regain a use of your channel nature. In addition, the primal magic that you wield causes you to age more slowly. For every 10 years you pass, your body only ages 1. So this is a very similar thing between Timeless Body, which we used to have here at 18th level, plus also a combination of the Archdruid ability, where you can use your wild shape an unlimited amount of times. So, you know, you can also ignore vulnerable and somatic, as well as materials that lack cost, and you get that in both normal and wild shape. So I like that they keep it a little bit more simple. Granted, this is whatever, but honestly, it's not a big deal because this comes at 17th level now, basically. But you're not getting the unlimited uses, which is one of those things. Like, Archdruid was kind of known for that, but it is what it is. You know, we'll live. You know, you get, when you get it, you know, when you roll initiative, you now get a use of your channel nature, which does help. There's a lot of abilities out there that do stuff like that. But yeah, and then, like I said, you also get that Timeless Body ability. So we're fairly even on what we're getting. The main thing that I feel the Druid is now really focused on is really letting you sink into more stuff with your wild shape. So, not looking at the subclass, so let's take that off for a second. We're pretty much where we were at, okay? You get some of these improvements along the way, which we are seeing in aquatic and aerial and alternating forms. The Druid is now focusing more on its wild shape, and I think that's where it should have been, because I think so many people used the Druid, they used the Moon Druid as the wild shape one, but then all of the others were so beyond that. The Shepherd Druid is less about you changing and more about summoning creatures. Spores, you transform into the fungal entity. Wildfire, you summon the wildfire entity. Like, all of these ones that we have, like even land, for example, it gives you more spells and it gives you, you know, abilities to move through areas. All of these subclasses that we have, like, none of them really ever care about that wild shape. And before, you never really had something that made the wild shapes really, like, feel unique to yourself. It was like, oh, I can just turn into this thing. But now you have more opportunities to really flavor it the way that you want it. And I like that. I like the flavor behind it. Because now you can just play whatever you want. You know, you don't have to worry about, you know, oh, well, I want to look like a fox, but I want the stats of a bear. Like, I want to be a big fox. Or, you know, I want the, you know, I want to be a badger, but, you know, the wolf has better stats, so I guess I'm going to be a wolf. So now you don't have to worry about that. You get the stat block for animal of the land, and then you get to look like whatever you want. So I like this. So real quick, we are going to look at the epic boon here. So what they have changed is now, like it says right here, in response to playtest feedback, we've made the epic boon feature in the Druid and the Paladin more powerful than the version previously offered in the Cleric and the 3 Experts. So now, when you get level 20, you're not only getting the epic boon, you are now getting to increase one of your scores by 2, and you can go above 20, but cannot go above 30. Now, this is something we have already seen before in... great. God damn it. The page crashed. Okay, I'm just gonna switch. So if we jump over here, let's get back to the classes. So we're going to look at Druid and Barbarian. So the Barbarian has an ability at the very end called Primal Champion, where when you reach level 20, your strength and constitution increase by 4 to a maximum of 24. So this means a level 20 Barbarian just goes from having a +5 in strength and con to a +7 instantly, and you are now the strongest and hardiest thing that is around. So I like that they're going this route to where when you get to level 20, you feel that presence of might. You get that, you know, that one more, you know, push through the gate. All right. So going back to the Druid, we're going to look at its subclass. Let's look at Moon. So we're going to take away the features here. Here we go. So Circle of the Moon. Now, the original Circle of the Moon is basically for the Druids that want to wild shape more. So the idea with Circle of the Moon is that you got to wild shape into creatures that were a CR 1 or lower. And as you leveled up, you got higher CRs. Additionally, you could also wild shape as a bonus action instead of an action, and you could use a bonus action to expend a spell slot to regain 1d8 hit points per slot used. Now, this has been taken out because of the new ability Healing Blossoms. So whereas before you would have to use this, you know, this combat wild shape to use a spell slot, effectively casting that spell, you now get that Healing Blossoms that you can use. You also get it here in the fact that you can now cast abjuration spells. So the new one, at 3rd level, you can now cast any abjuration spells that you have prepared, provided they don't have material costs. So if we look at this, so let's pick our Druid, and we're going to go down here to abjuration. And I need to point out, because it matters for this, there are a lot of spells that have had their change or their type change to abjuration. A lot of healing spells, for example, Healing Word is now abjuration. Cure Wounds is now abjuration. Prayer of Healing is now abjuration. Same with Mass Healing Word. Mass Heal, Power Word Heal. Hallow, well, Hallow is whatever. Mass Cure Wounds and Heal. These are now all abjuration. The idea is, previously, they used to be spells that were about invoking healing energy. And that was the idea of them being evocation, because evocation spells are spells that exude an energy. I believe now they're going down a better track because abjuration is about healing and protective magics. So if you look here, a lot of these are protection spells, warding spells, things that increase your defense. These are just the druid ones. If we go into here, we're sanctuary, mage armor, armor of Agathis, which gives you temporary hit points, shield of faith, which increases your AC. So all of these are protective magics, and that's the idea that we're now going with healing spells, is that things are now about the healing aspect. So not only are you going to be able to cast all of these spells while in this, as long as you have it prepared that day, you're going to be able to have those healing spells. So this is going to be where this druid ability of combat wild shape is really changing. Because if we look at Cure Wounds is 1d8 plus your spellcasting modifier. That's about what you got before, so now you're even getting a little bit more and being able to, just make it what it is. Because what is this? A bonus action to expend a spell slot and regain 1d8 hit points. That's just Cure Wounds as a bonus action. So yes, does it use a full action? Sure. But it's more healing, if you ask me. Additionally, you can now make unarmed strikes as a bonus action, which works really well because this bestial strike arguably is an unarmed strike because you're not wielding a weapon. So you can now use a bonus action to attack with this, which means you would get 3 attacks at 5th level, because once you get that multi-attack, you can now make 2 of those and then attack with your offhand, with this quick attack. And then Swift Transformation, this is again the same thing. You can use your bonus action to transform instead of your full action. All right. Primal Strike, this is gone. So technically speaking, this is gone. You don't just get a thing that your attacks are magic for the sake of overcoming resistance. But we have a little bit of a change because it kind of works in our favor. So what this is now is 6th level ability kind of combines 6th and 10th level abilities from the past, and kind of with the 10th up here as well. So for the old druids, you had your attacks were magical for overcoming resistance, and you could also turn into an air, earth, fire, or water elemental, which are arguably very strong creatures. And you're getting these at 10th level, so a CR5 isn't that crazy, but some of the stuff that they get is very strong. Fire form does a lot of damage to creatures around it. Can also set things on fire. You create that area of light. Water elementals being able to freeze stuff, that whelm ability to restrain and grapple. Air elementals to knock creatures prone, also being able to squeeze through very small spaces, and earth being able to glide through unworked non-magical stone. So you don't get that anymore. You don't get your choice of elemental changes. Now what you get is when you wild shape, you can pick acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder, and then you gain resistance to that while in that beast form. And you can also, yeah, that's right. So when you attack, your attacks deal that damage. So in a sense, this kind of becomes what Primal Strike was, where fire damage is now magic damage. This is now not just bludgeoning damage. So you now have this extra, this extra changing of type. And then up here, elemental strike. So now you're, whenever you change into this elemental ability and you have these, you know, flaming claws, or, you know, you're a bird with lightning and thunder surrounding it, now you get to deal extra damage. And that also goes up at 17th level as well. So while it's different, I don't mind it. And the reason I don't mind it is because it is still sticking to what they're changing the Druid to be. They want the Druid to be more of the wild shape class. And this is allowing you to take the wild shape you want to be and modify it, not forcing you to have to be one of these stat blocks that you might not necessarily care to be. And then finally, 1,000 forms at 14th level. It's the same thing. You always you can cast alter self at will. So that's basically the same thing there. So as for the Druid, I personally like the direction that they're going. I like that the wild shape now has a lot of flavor behind it. I like that newer players will not be as scared to try it. It is now a lot more easy to approach a player who wants to play a Druid and say, okay, you are a spellcaster and you get this ability that allows you to turn into this stat block, and you can look like anything. You can look like a dog, you can look like a house cat, you can look like a bear, a wolf, a badger, a panther. You can look like anything. You just don't have a flying speed and you don't have a swim speed. But you can look like whatever you want. So there's that. Now, arguably, nothing would stop you from looking like a fish. Okay? Technically speaking, nothing would stop you from looking like a bird and just having a walking speed. You just wouldn't be able to fly. But if you had the fly spell cast on you, well, now shit gets weird. Because now you can have, you know, you can pretend like your wings are going and that you're flying, but you're not. So you can make somebody think that you're a higher level Druid than maybe you are. I don't know if you want to go through with all that, but I also like how the Moon Druid is designed. I like that it is building up something that allows your wild shape to feel more unique, to have those abilities that make it the improvement, not necessarily giving you a bigger catalog to have to choose from. Because if we, like, let's look at an 8th level Moon Druid, okay? A CR2 at 8th level. All right. Where are we at? Here. Let's get rid of all these. Look at this. 8th level, you suddenly have 179 stat blocks to consider. That's a fuck ton. And you also have to consider, you might have never seen, you know, some of these things in your travels. I mean, arguably, not every character is going to see a dinosaur. So would you be able to turn into it? These are the things that I think about a lot whenever I'm thinking of like this. And I remember when I did suggest that you steer away from playing a Druid, because when you play a Druid, you have so many options that even experienced players feel like they have decision or analysis paralysis, because you are just, you know, inundated with how many things you can change into. What do you shape change into? Do you go with a creature that can fly, one that can swim? Do you want something with pack tactics or flyby? Do you need a swim speed? There's all these different things you have to consider, and it's just one of those things that now you don't have to worry about it. You know, now you just have to say, okay, well, I'm an animal of the land, and I am going to have the body of a bear, and I want the head of an owl, so I look like an owl bear, and these are my stats because of who I am as a person and not because of some arbitrary stat block. And we all knew this was going to happen. Let's be honest. We all knew this was coming down the line. The movie's coming out in a few months, and they had an owlbear transformation in there. And even in that situation, you know, we know from the trailer that character changes from a horse into a back into her own shape, and then into an owlbear, or, you know, change from a horse into an owlbear, and then into her own self. And you know what? That to me is just that to me is that she's a Circle of the Moon druid. She's using that ability of altering forms. So that's what I would say. Instead of using a second use of that ability, she might be a 13th level OneD&D druid. So who knows? Well, we'll find out in a few months. All right. So we babbled on about the druid long enough. Let's look at the paladin. So much like the druid, paladin is part of the priest class. They obviously use strength and charisma, you know, knights and whatnot. That's their whole thing. Now, the first thing that I noted whenever I started looking into this, they're getting cantrips now. And that blew me away, because druids did not get cantrips before. Previously, you just got spells. So, for one, shocking. Two, they now get spells at first level instead of having to wait till second level to get it, which doesn't really change much. It just means that you now have 2 first level spell slots at first level instead of not having them. Now you don't get your Divine Smite still until level 2, so that's fine. But I just like that we're now getting some cantrips in here. Also, Channel Divinity has its listing of how many uses you can have. Same as if we go up here, where you can see how many uses of Channel Nature that you have. Same with the Cleric has, the Cleric didn't have it on there. I want to say the Cleric, yes. So this is actually a big change, and they actually bring this up later on. So whereas before, the Channel Divinity for the Cleric was actually equal to your proficiency bonus, and you got back all after a long rest. In this, they have changed that. So I think they mention it. Where do they mention it? Here, yes. So in previous Unearthed Arcana, the Cleric version of Divine Channel Divinity offered a number equal to proficiency. That number is too generous for a multi-class character who could only take 1 level in Cleric and then get ever-increasing uses as you gain levels in other classes. So in this, it is more focused on your own class level. So a 1-level dip into, or a 2-level dip into Paladin is only going to get you 2 uses of Channel Divinity, whereas a 1-use dip into a Cleric, by the time you get to 5th level, you got 3 uses. So I understand where they're going with that. Do I necessarily agree? Maybe not, but I get where they're coming from, because I didn't even consider that aspect of the imbalance with multi-classing. All right, so aside from those cantrips and first level spells, not too much is changing, as we can see here. Which is fascinating. It seems they're sticking with proficiency. So there's a lot of things. I mean, over the years they have been moving a lot of stuff to proficiency. So it doesn't actually surprise me that they changed it, because I can see the argument there against using that. Oh shit, dropped my cap. So looking at this, not a lot has changed. 5th level, you're still getting the extra attack. You're still getting your aura of protection later on, your aura of courage. Improved divine smite is now changed to radiant strikes, and we still have lay on hands, but a lot of things have actually changed in here. So let's dig into this. So first and foremost, Divine Sense is gone from 1st level. Now, Divine Sense is basically, for 6 seconds, when you use this, it's essentially a radar ping. You know where Celestial, Fiend, and Undead are within 60 feet of you. That's not behind total cover. So that's pretty much it. You also know where anything has been consecrated or desecrated, such as the Hallow spell, and you can use this a number of times equal to 1 plus your charisma modifier, and you get them back on a long rest. So that's just gone from 1st level. It's going to come back at 2nd, though. Don't worry. Lay on Hands still works the same. Number of hit points equal to your level times 5. You can divvy them up as you please. You can expend 5 hit points to heal a creature of a poisoned condition, rather than healing them with hit points. So I do like, though, that it does say in here, that it doesn't say in here anything about being undead or being a construct. So specifically, I want to read this. Your Blessed Touch can heal wounds. You have a pool of healing power that replenishes when you take a long rest. With that pool, you can restore a total number of hit points equal to 5 times your Paladin level. As a magic action, touch a creature, which can be yourself, and draw power from a pool of healing to restore hit points to that creature up to a maximum of the amount in the pool. In addition, you can spend 5 hit points from the pool of healing to remove the poison condition on a creature, rather than these points being used to restore hit points. It no longer says it doesn't affect undead or constructs. So technically, does that mean that you could remove poison from an undead or a construct can't be poisoned, but could you now, heal an undead or construct? I don't know. It seems like you could. All right, spell casting. This is where we talk about the fact that, hey, look at this. You now get to prepare cantrips. Really cool that is a thing now. Charisma is still your casting, so that hasn't changed. But let's move on to Divine Smite. So, great change here. I already love it, because now it's a weapon or an unarmed strike. It is no longer a melee weapon attack. Yes, you can play a ranged paladin and they can smite now. Yes, you can play a fisticuff paladin and they can smite now. Let's feel these fists of fiery, radiant fury. So happy that that's a thing. It's still the same amount of damage. 2d8 for a 1st level slot, plus 1d8 for each additional. But look at this. Previously, you had a maximum of 5d8. You don't have that maximum anymore. So if we look at this, there's no maximum. And I think there is a reason for this, and that is because you can no longer use it more than once on a turn. So, in addition, the damage increased before to a 1d8 if it was undead or a fiend. That's not the case anymore. Now, it is just 1d8 as is, and that's it. It doesn't matter what it is, and you could go up to, 12d8 if you had enough spell slots or a high enough spell slot. So, honestly, I'm okay with this. This seems a little powerful, or I guess you couldn't go up to 12, but you could go up to 10d8 using a 9th level spell slot. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. All right. So, fighting style. You defense or We're getting another fighting style. So, yep, we kind of knew that that was going to be a thing. You're not the warrior group, but you get that. We knew it was coming along. Now, third level, channel ability. So no longer do you get this divine health giving you immunity to disease. This is now where you get your channel divinity. So this is where divine sense comes in. So let's scroll back up to there. I really like how they're working the class groups really. Druid more like, yeah, well, that's the idea. I mean, paladins and clerics can be, nature aligned, but yeah, they're all priests. They all worship, those higher powers. So this is where we're finally getting back divine sense. So now when you use your channel divinity, which kind of works the same way with channel nature, you get one back on a short rest. You have as many as on your class table. But now, excuse me, divine sense is now a bonus action. It lasts for 10 minutes or until you become incapacitated. And it doesn't have that, behind total cover thing. And you also know the type of the creature. So oh yeah, no, that was already in there. Yeah. So I love this. I love that they have turned it from a ping to an aura, because that's what the Paladin is all about. The Paladin's about auras. So you now have this 60-foot aura for the next 10 minutes telling you where Celestials, Fiends, and Undead are. So do you have to wait 2 more levels for it? Yes. But let's be honest. Most adventurer games nowadays start at 3rd level. So it's not actually that big of a deal to ask for it to be at 3rd level. So I'm okay with it, in my opinion. Up next, we have the Paladin subclass, which we'll get into that. Feats, you will get into that. 5th level, extra attack, great, same as what we always had. But what is this? Faithful Steed? Now at 5th level, in addition to getting that extra attack, you can now cast Find Steed once a day for free. What the this is great. And we're going to look at Find Steed a little bit later on when we look at Find Familiar and see just how great they are. So we're going to get to that. So yeah, we just got something extra, and we'll talk about how great this is. 6th level class feature, which we knew that was going to be there instead of being at 7th level. But now that means that our Aura of Protection gets bumped up to 7th. So these two just kind of flip-flop at this point. Aura of Protection is still going to be the fact that creatures within your aura are going to get that bonus to their saving throws, equal to your charisma modifier. Now, this is something very interesting. If another paladin is present, a creature can benefit only from one aura of protection at a time. The creature chooses which one when entering the auras. So one of the reasons why this is in there is because this used to be a huge way that you could kind of spam a party. You have a couple paladins in the party. They all are level 6. They all have Aura of Protection. You're all standing in a group within 10 feet. If you have 4 paladins and each one of them has a +4 to their charisma, you're each getting a +12 to your saving throws. So this was kind of the whole thing. And even if you only had 2 of them and maybe they were at like 18th level, or even if they weren't, but like within 10 feet of both of them, you were getting a +8 or a +10. So Aura of Protection used to be very spammy. This is kind of removing that bit of spam. I'm okay with it because I understand why they're doing it, and it was never really something that I saw in too many of my games. 8th level feat, that's, whatever. 9th level, Abjure Foes. So we really didn't have a 9th level feat before. We're still gonna get to Aura of Courage, and Improved Divine Smite. But what we're looking at here, Abjure Foes. As a magic action, you can expend a use of your Channel Divinity to overwhelm foes with Divine Awe. Present your holy symbol or weapon, which I actually like that they do that. Target a number of creatures within 60 feet, and each one of them makes a wisdom save or is dazed or frightened for 1 minute. On a success, they have the dazed condition for a minute until it takes any damage. So we really haven't had something like this yet, because with everything that we've had so far, it's kind of been even. This is something fairly new. Now, to me, this does kind of remind me of the Oath of Vengeance, or no, sorry, Conquest. The Oath of Conquest ability, where you get the this. So kind of in the same sense, creatures within 30 feet, you could frighten them for a minute. So it kind of gives that same sense, but at 9th level, you know, it's far more powerful once you're starting to use that dazed condition. That music just pumped up. Oh, that's why. That's a song. I'm probably gonna get TOS for that. Yep, music changed because that song ended. So hopefully that doesn't mute my audio for any amount of time. All right, so I really like this. Now, one of the things we have to look at is, let's look at the dazed condition. Remember what that does. So down here, you can see dazed. You can move or make one action, but you can't do both, and you can't use a bonus action or a reaction. So using this, a number of creatures equal to your charisma modifier within 60 feet, only being able to move or use one action is incredibly powerful. And it doesn't even matter if they save, because you're still doing that. Abjure Foes is so powerful. Like, 5 creatures within 60 feet of me that can only attack or move? Well, shit, just move away from them. They can't hit you because they can't use reactions. And once you move away from them, even if they move up to you, they can't hit you. So you just have to hope that they don't have range or magic. But I love this. It also is that it doesn't continue making the save. Once you do this, it is done. And then this goes on until it takes any damage. So it can only do that stuff until then, which gives you so much to do with it. This is a very powerful ability, and I'm very curious to see how things will play out with that. Moving up to 11th level, it's technically the same thing here. So when you use an attack with a simple or martial weapon, you can deal an extra 1d8 of radiant damage. I like this because they moved it away from being melee weapons. So now the only thing that it's not is your unarmed strikes. But I feel like they should make it the unarmed strikes. I don't like that it's not. That's it. That's the one feedback I am gonna give. I hope that they do more than just that. All right, Aura of Courage is now moved at 13th instead of 10. So this just means if that you are immune to the frightened condition, and you can suppress frightened in there. So that's basically the same thing. 15th level, Restoring Touch. So what this is that you can end a condition on a creature. And this is going to be using those healing, that Lay on Hands ability. So unfortunately, it is not the same as Cleansing Touch. Cleansing Touch allowed you to end a spell on yourself or a willing creature. So that does kind of suck, because the ability to end a spell on a creature was very powerful. But, you know, I guess we get what we get. So this isn't too bad, though, because it is kind of nice to be able to end one of those effects. I just know, you know, spells can be sometimes more effective. Aura expansion, your spells or your auras are now 30 feet instead of 10, whereas before it actually took until 18th level to get that. So you get your extension now a level early. Divine Conduit, you regain the use of Channel Divinity when you roll initiative. So this matches up to what the Druid was, where the Druid got that additional use when you roll initiative at 18th level as well. And then we're going to go up to that same thing. You get to increase the score by 2 up to a maximum of 30. So I love this. Now for the Paladin, or for the Paladin subclass, the Oath of Devotion. Honestly, I already looked at this a little bit earlier. It's actually pretty decent, in my opinion. So starting off, we have our spells. So now we have Protection from Good and Evil and Shield of Faith, and so we get Shield of Faith instead of Sanctuary. 5th level, we're getting Aid and Zone of Truth, so replacing Luster Restoration with Aid. We are now getting Aura of Vitality and Blinding Smite instead of Beacon of Hope and Dispel Magic. We are replacing Freedom of Movement with the Staggering Smite. That is the I want to say that's the Psychic Smite. And then Commune and Flame Strike still at 17th level, so that has not changed. So Channel Divinity, Sacred Weapon. So previously, as an action, you get to give your weapon magic. So for 1 minute, you add your charisma modifier to your attack rolls, and it also sheds bright light in a 20-foot area. Excuse me. Now, it is a bonus action to do this with a simple or martial weapon. So again, this can't be your fist by raw. And it's basically the same thing. 1 minute charisma modifier to attacks that you make, and it deals radiant damage instead of dealing its normal damage, which that one actually is a little bit different, and I do like that, because radiant damage means that it could overdo a resistance to non-magical damage. Now, this has not shown up yet. Turn the Unholy has not shown up yet. It's very similar to what Abjure Foes was, but technically Turn Unholy has not shown up. So, and I don't see it coming up. So at 7th level, previously, we had Aura of Devotion. So friendly creatures within 10 feet can't be charmed. We now get Smite of Protection at 6th level. Your Divine Smite now radiates protective energy. When you use your Divine Smite, choose yourself or an ally within 30 feet, and they gain temporary hit points. Equal to 1d8 plus the spell slot, or plus the level of the spell slot used. I don't necessarily know if I like this as a devotion paladin. I think it's fine. But I just don't know. I feel like you might not be a protection style paladin with this. And this is, you know, is the Oath of Devotion, you know, necessarily to your party? Again, it's one of those things where I think they're both great. Not being able to be charmed is really good, and it's fairly powerful. But, you know, that we're already going to get. This is basically replacing the Purity of Spirit. Which is that you're always under the effects of Protection from Good and Evil, which is already in itself a pretty good spell. So this is something wholly new. I don't mind it. I think it's pretty good. I just don't necessarily know if I would have replaced it with Purity of Spirit. And then Holy Nimbus, we are now getting that at 14th level instead of at 20th level, because previously Paladin's Capstone was their subclass feature. So previously at 20th level, you can emanate an aura of sunlight for a minute within 30 feet. And when an creature enters that area, they take 10 radiant damage. When they start their when they start their turn there, they take 10 radiant damage. And in addition, for that minute, you have advantage on saves against spells cast by fiends or undead. So now it is simply that you can imbue your aura of protection with with aura of protection. That was, I went way too far. Yeah, so this is your 7th level ability. This is the one where you can give people those bonuses to saving throws. So you're having to use that as part of this. So you imbue your aura of protection, which again lasts for a minute. It's now a bonus action instead of a full action. When a creature starts their turn in that aura, they're going to take damage equal to your proficiency plus your charisma modifier. So at 14th level, I want to say you have a +4 to your, you either have a +4 or you're just coming up to a +5 on your proficiency. And at that point, you should have a +5 to your other one. So around 10 is fine for the amount of damage. But technically that can go up to 11 at total, and the area is filled with bright light. So you're not getting that same advantage against fiends and undead, but you're still getting that damage, which is okay. Now what I like is that you can reuse this as long as you have a 4th level spell slot. So that is pretty nice. Now you have a limited amount of those because as a paladin you're only a partial caster, but it's nice to have that ability to reuse it a few times. So that pretty much covers it for the paladin. Overall, I'm kind of meh about it. There's nothing that I feel has really, like, I feel like things got shifted around a lot. We got some cool new features like Faithful Steed, and this Abjure Foes, but we've also lost some stuff by, not having Turn the Unholy and not being able to have Purity of Spirit later on, not Purity of Spirit, but Cleansing Touch. So being able to end a spell on your, with your ability is pretty strong. But I think it's overall fine. I like the way that they're going with this, with these priests, and so I think that things are going to look pretty good once they actually, get a handle on everything. All right, so again, we're not going to talk about those boons. They are what they are. But before we close out for tonight, as we pretty much got through most of this, I did want to touch on 3 spells. The first is Find Familiar. Now, Find Familiar is a spell that we are probably all fairly familiar with. I'm also going to pull up Find Steed. So, Find Familiar. 1 level ritual. It requires 10 gold worth of charcoal, incense, and herbs that are consumed in a brass brazier. You gain the service of an animal, and you can choose any one of these options. And additional animal choices are picked by the DM's discretion. There's a fuck ton if you have the extra books. But basically, when this thing shows up, it obeys your commands. You It cannot attack. When it drops to 0 hit points, it disappears, and then you can resummon it, you know, or you would have to recast it, but you can also dismiss it and bring it back. While you're within 110 feet, you can communicate with it telepathically. You can also see through its eyes and ears, or see and hear through its eyes and ears, as long as you are on the same plane of existence. Or no, sorry, that is within 100 feet. What was the other thing? Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of warlocks. Warlocks familiars are different. And you can't have more than one familiar at a time. Also, if you cast a spell of a range of touch, you can have your familiar deliver it as long as it's within 100 feet. So, what have they done to change this? Well, they basically did the same thing that they did with the Druid's wild shape. When you cast this spell now, choose Celestial, Fey, or Fiend, which, okay. Then choose an environment, air, land, or water. The familiar resembles a tiny animal of your choice that is native to that environment. This is amazing. No longer do you have to just pick a stat block. You now have whatever you want it to be, and this is now your stat block. Additionally, you can use your reaction on its turn to have it attack. This is awesome. No longer is a familiar just a utility option. It is now a combat mechanic. This is great. If it drops to 0 hit points, or if you dismiss it as a bonus action, or if you die, it disappears. So again, very much like the other one. You can also use that magic action to see and hear through it, but this does not limit you to a range. Okay, if you notice, there's nothing in here yet that says range other than where you cast it. That to me is incredibly powerful, because that means that it could be beyond that original 100, but you are just getting it for those 6 seconds. But there's nothing that says you can't just keep using it, because here it's technically the same thing. As an action, you see until the end of your next turn. So you're essentially just recasting it, but it's no longer limited to that 100 feet. In addition, as we look down here, that telepathy is now listed as the language for the stat block and is 120 feet. So you get an extra bonus 20 feet with that. But the nice thing about this, you can upcast it. Prior to this, it's just a first level ritual. There's no reason to cast it with a higher level spell because it doesn't give you a benefit. Now you get a higher armor class when you cast it with a higher level spell. Now you get more hit points when you cast it with a higher level spell. You get more damage when you cast it with a higher level spell. This is great. This is no longer just a utility option, and I love that this is how they work. So I'm so glad that this is the way that they moved. This means that, like, my the ranger, or not the ranger, the rogue in my one group who has the familiar ring, she doesn't have to have a rat that's flavored to be a possum. She can now just have a possum. So if we look at this, how does a rat compare to this? Okay, otherworldly familiar. Let's say that she's casting it at first level. Even if it's just at first level, this is already a 13 to AC. So it's already getting a buff to its armor class. Its hit points would go up to 4. So that's already a buff again by 3 points. It gets a much better climbing or moving speed, as well as gets a climbing speed. Its strength is better, its dex is better, con's better, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma are all better. It has a higher dark vision and a better passive. Obviously, telepathy is that same bonus. But one of the cool abilities that it now has is that when it would drop to 0 hit points, it can instead drop to 1 and go there for an hour or until you bring it back, and then it reappears in your space. So if this thing's about to die, it can just disappear every long rest, which is great. Also, let's look at the attack. Here, this is a +0 to hit with 1 point of damage. Now it's your spell attack modifier. Now granted, ranger or rogues don't have spell attack modifiers. Technically rogues do if they're an arcane arcane trickster, which is intelligence, so we could base it off of that. So let's see what her intelligence is. +1. There we go. Yeah, Waywalk of Turin, also known as Nim. So, you know, this is pocket. +0 to hit, +1 or +0 to hit, 1 damage, 1 hit point, gonna die. But now can have you know, your spell attack modifier hit. That's 8 plus that ability. So it now has a 9 to hit. That's great. Okay, actually she does have yeah, she does have some or it's 8 plus proficiency plus your thing. So but yeah, even with these, okay, even if we said it was 10, all right, that's, or not 10, you know, even if we said it was intelligence plus, that's still a +3 to hit. That's still better than what it was before. Plus the damage is 1 plus the level. So again, it's dealing 2 points of damage now. And it can also deal radiant, psychic, or necrotic in order to avoid, doesn't being Celestial, Fae, or Fiend have significance? It does with the damage types, but it also has significance with abilities that would allow it to be detected, such as Divine Sense. Because technically a Fae can avoid Divine Sense, because Divine Sense, Celestials, Fiends, and Undead. So also this, the Deliver spell also gets bumped up 120 feet, which again is great. So I love this. I love what they've done with it. I think it's a great option. I love the flavor they've introduced with this. It's all about flavor in this one. And how else do they keep going with that? Find Steed is now the same thing. You no longer have to choose between one of the many stat blocks. You now just get the otherworldly Steed stat block. Okay, most people choose a warhorse. So let's look at this. Armor class, 10 plus level. Cool, that's even. 5 plus 10 per spell level. Sure, that starts at 15. You upcast this at a 2nd level, you're at 25 hit points and your AC is at 12. It gets a 60-foot movement speed. And look at this. A flying speed requires a 4th level spell slot. So much like Find Greater Steed, which is a 4th level spell, now Find Steed takes the place of Find Greater Steed. This is beautiful. Upcasting this spell to essentially do what the other spell does is great. I love it. I love everything about it. Okay. Passive perception is about the same. Look at this. Telepathy, 1 mile. Okay. You still get it, but I love the fact that it's now listed under the language. Also, this I think is just entirely new because I've never seen this before. When you regain hit points from a spell of 1st level or higher, the Steed regains the same number if you're within 5 feet. So if you're sitting on the back of this and you're a Paladin and you heal yourself for 10 hit points, he gets healed as well. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Oh, I guess actually here it is. While mounted, you can make any spell you cast that targets only you to cast to also target your steed. But I like the fact that this is now like when you regain hit points. So this is no longer that you have to be the one casting it. It is now if the druid heals you or the cleric, you're both getting it. It's very powerful. And then we're going to look at the attacks. So here, Otherworldly Maul. So this one, 1d8 plus the spell's damage. So I think it's great that we're getting this because you have stuff like the pony or the mastiff. Maybe you don't want a horse. Maybe you're a halfling. Maybe you want something that is going to be your pet. This is a little bit weaker than what you would have now. So you can say, oh, my otherworldly steed is just a mastiff, or is a dog, is a pug, is something. I can just ride it. It's a great pug. Your steed gains HP with you. Yes, same thing. It levels up. Oh yeah, no, you're saying with this one. Yeah. So that's it. Like it can heal with you. And granted, it could heal with you before if you cast it on yourself, but now you can have someone else cast it on you. Okay. So this is where the typing matters for the one that we're using. So if you choose the Fey option, you can have the steed teleport along with its rider up to 60 feet per long rest. These are all per long rest, so I'm not going to keep saying that. Fiend, the steed's eyes gleam with fiendish light as it targets one creature within 60 feet. They must succeed a wisdom save or be frightened for a turn. And Celestial, the steed touches another creature and restores hit points equal to 2d8 plus the spell's level. All right, let's look at it this way. The steed touches another creature and restores hit points equal to 2d8 plus the spell's level. If you cast this at a second level, 2d8 averages out to be about 10 hit points, okay? Plus 2, 12 hit points. You're touching the steed if you're riding it. So it heals you because of the life bond, you heal it. And that is just one free amount of healing that thing can give you and it. Kudos to the two of you. So I absolutely love what this UA has done with Find Familiar and Find Steed. Amazing changes. It's all about flavor. I love this. The other thing that we're going to look at, there's really only one that I want to look at, and that is going to be Glimmering Smite. So if I got to close some of these windows. I got so many windows open. All right. So if we look up the smite spells. So reference spells. So here we go. These are the different spells that paladins can get, okay? And the nice thing is these are all paladin spells. They're the only ones who get these except for subclasses. So as you can see here, we already have Searing Smite, so that's the extra fire damage, so kudos on that one. We have Staggering Smite, that one is the psychic damage. Thunderous Smite is the thunder damage. Wrathful Smite is the psychic damage and also the frightened condition. But what is this? Glimmering Smite. It is one of the best things in the world. You deal extra radiant damage, and if the creature was invisible, they're now glowing. This is basically fairy fire with a weapon attack, and I love this. I also love that it specifically says it can be an unarmed strike, because before, a lot of these are melee weapon attacks. Okay, Branding Smite is a weapon attack, but Searing Smite is a melee weapon attack. So the fact that they're now starting to change these to be when you deal this damage, you know, it is that it's that regular any weapon or an unarmed strike. Now we're starting to get more of that, like, yeah, I could be an unarmed paladin. Fuck yeah. I can be a ranged paladin. Fuck yeah. I love this. I love these changes so much. So some that I want to look at here, they've talked about, they're talking about some of these new things on here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up 2 instances of this window because it's going to make life a lot easier. So we're going to scroll down to here and we're going to leave this up on here and we're going to keep looking on the left. So new entry, dying. That's what I'm doing right now because I think I have a cold. So when a player drops to 0 hit points, that creature has the dying condition, which replaces the original rules under falling unconscious, death saves, and stabilizing a creature. Let us jump over to that book real quick. View entire book. And down on page 197. Blah, 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 blah. Here we go. Falling unconscious. If damage reduces you to 0 hit points and fails to kill you, you fall unconscious. Okay, this ends if you gain any hit points. Death saves. When you start your turn with 0 hit points, you make a death save. If you roll 10 or higher, you succeed. Otherwise, you fail. Blah, 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 blah. Rolling a 1 counts as 2 failures. Rolling a 20 counts as you regaining a hit point. And if you take damage, you suffer a failed death save. And if it's a crit, you suffer 2. And if the damage exceeds your maximum, you die. And lastly, stabilizing. You can make them DC 10 medicine check to stabilize them, meaning they don't have to make saves anymore. And if they aren't healed, they gain 1 hit point after 1d4 hours. So how is this changed? Well, it's not, but they have better organized this information. This is one of those things that I've talked about before that they're doing with OneD&D. Instead of having this big string of 3 different sections of just text, it is now, when you have the dying condition, you have 0 hit points. You're knocked out. You're making death saves. It gives you the details of rolling a 1 and a 20. It explains what the 2 options are and damage. I like that things are categorized now instead of just being long strings of text. It makes it so much easier to reference stuff. This is one of the things that I have enjoyed so much about OneD&D. Things are now categorized. They have explanations that are easy to look at. When you're reading these books, it's not like you're having to sit there and, go through and find a specific sentence. You can now look for the thing that it is. So I'm really happy that they have done this. Knocking out a creature, it's pretty much the same thing as what we just talked about in the other one. So when you reduce a creature to 0 hit points, you can instead reduce it to 1 hit point. You are then rendering them unconscious, and that creature starts to make a short rest. Okay? So that means that after an hour, it is going to be up. Okay? I like this. This has always been something that players could do, but not a lot of players know that you can knock out a creature where you deal non-lethal damage. That was the concept of it. I like this because now it is one specifically melee attack, because players have tried to do it with spells and ranges, spells where it's like, oh, I cast fire bolts and, I knock them out. No, you don't. But I often would rather knock. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it's beneficial to some degree, but the thing is that, they remain unconscious until it regains any hit points or until someone administers first aid to it. So while it's sitting there, it will eventually regain those hit points, and then it can just start to attack again. So in some cases you might not want to, but this has always been an option, and it really depends on the party to, you know, argue that they want to do that. So here we go. They also updated the listing for a short rest. So a short rest, you have to have 1 hit point in order to gain any benefits from. You regain 1 or more of your hit die. You can regain hit points by spending your hit die. You also get some features back, but if you roll initiative, cast a spell other than a cantrip, or take damage during a short rest, it is interrupted and you must start over. And I love this. So many times I have tried to do a combat during a rest in campaigns that I've run, and it's like, okay, well, let's just finish our rest now. No, this now specifically outlines that rolling initiative is part of that, or taking damage. Telepathy really hasn't changed. This is just more or less saying that you don't need to see the creature. It's a telepathic contract, and that's kind of the idea behind it, and that you don't need to share a language with it. So yeah, here it is. Once a telepathic conversation starts, the non-telepath can communicate mentally until the telepathic connection ends. So I like how it does give a little bit extra information about how this stuff works, because that is something that we need to, you know, we want to have reference for in these books. And the unconscious condition is basically the same thing it's always been. You're incapacitated, you're prone, speed is 0, attacks have advantage, you auto fail dex and strength saves, crits against you or any attacks within 5 feet are crits, and you're unaware of your surroundings. So nothing has really changed. So revised entries. So let's take a look at these. So D20 test no longer awards inspiration, so it is now called heroic advantage. So we scroll up here, heroic advantage, also called inspiration, this is given out by the GM. So again, this is playtest. They're trying things out. I personally like the idea of rolling a 1 on a D20 to give out inspiration, because it means that I, as the DM, don't have to, like, you know, oh, is this worth it? Is this worth inspiration? You know, I can allow the dice to kind of take some of that off of my shoulders. Difficult terrain. Your allies are no longer difficult terrain for you, and furniture is difficult terrain if you are 1 size smaller than you or large. Hi, Bo. So, difficult terrain. So, when you previously moving through your ally space would be difficult terrain, now a creature that isn't tiny or your ally. So I you know, I like this. A space is difficult terrain for a creature if the space contains any of the following. Yeah, so this is where you know, like it says, they had that thing where it was difficult terrain. I think that was in the cleric one. Yeah, so right here, if a creature isn't tiny, so now it's if they're your ally. So now you can move through those spaces again without issue. Equipping weapon, clarified how equipping and unequipping works. So subsection of attack. So you can equip or unequip 1 weapon before or after each attack as you make as part of this action. If you equip a weapon before an attack, you don't need to use it for that attack. Equipping a weapon includes drawing from the sheath, picking it up, or retrieving it from a container. Unequipping includes sheathing, stowing, and dropping. So I like this. I like that they explain what they mean. What is equipping a weapon? What isn't, or what is unequipping a weapon? Fly speed. I don't know how that actually changed. I didn't even know that that did change. Oh yeah, your fly speed is just reduced to 0. Gotcha. changed. You know what? I don't think much. Help now works with total proficiencies. Okay, heroic advantage. Name changed from heroic inspiration. Yep. Incapacitation clarified that it still blocks bonus actions. Long rest changes have been made to every section of the roll. So let's look at long rest. All right. So a long rest is an period of extended downtime, at least 8 hours, available to any creature. During a long rest, you sleep for at least 6 hours, perform no more than 2 hours of light activity. During the sleep, you have the unconscious condition, so they're being very specific. You have to have at least 1 hit point to regain any of these benefits. You regain all lost HP, regain all hit dice, max HP is restored, ability scores are recovered. If you have the exhausted condition, you reduce this by 1. Some features are reduced. After you finish a long rest, you must wait 16 hours before starting a new one. This has always been the case because you can't benefit from the effects of a long rest for 24 hours. That has always been the case. Now, 1 hour of walking, rolling initiative, casting a cantrip, or casting anything above a cantrip, or taking damage will interrupt your long rest. If the rest was at least 1 hour, you gain the benefits of a short rest, though. So you can resume a long rest immediately after any interruption. If you do so, the rest requires 1 additional hour per interruption, and I like that. I like that it makes you, it forces you to take that extra hour to get back into things. Yeah, and then removed entries. So some of this stuff is just getting moved because they're not having to explain it multiple times. Like obviously attack rolls and ability checks aren't getting removed, but Jeremy Crawford did say in his most recent video, the jump action is just being removed. It's not going to be something they're going to continue to look into anymore because most people said it just wasn't working for them. And then beyond that, that's really all we have. So that pretty much covers our Unearthed Arcana 2023 Paladin and Druid, the playtest, OneD&D playtest number 4. Not everyone would be unconscious. They need to rewrite that. I like the clarification of needing 16 hours. So that's the thing. That doesn't... Okay, so when we look at this, let's go back to it. During the sleep, you have the unconscious condition. During the sleep, if there are creatures like what you're referring to, because I know you're being specific about your own character, elves don't sleep, they trance. So an elf is not unconscious during this time because they are not sleeping. Neither do Warforged. Warforged don't sleep. They enter an inert state. So this is already explaining that. Yes. So if we look at the Warforged, Sentry's Rest, you spend 6 hours in an inactive, motionless state rather than sleeping. So this does not apply to elves and Warforged. This only applies to creatures that sleep, because it is saying you sleep for at least 6 hours. So for that 6 hours, you are unconscious. Yes, it is using specific words. So that's the thing. That's actually what I like, is that it uses the specific wording, because for those 6 hours, in those moments, you are incapacitated and prone. Your speed is 0. Attacks have advantage. You automatically fail dex and strength saves. Any attack that hits you is a crit within 5 feet, and you're unaware of your surroundings. So if nobody is there to wake you up, if everybody is unconscious, you're all falling prey to these conditions. This is what I like, is that they're being very specific about this stuff. But yes, talking about the Ardling, they did remove the Ardling. So the Ardling is going bye-bye. It might come back later on, like Jeremy Crawford said. It's not its time, and I get that. I don't know what it was supposed to be. Is it supposed to be a furry? Is it like an animal humanoid thing? I don't know. And I don't think they necessarily knew. But maybe in time, it'll get the love and attention that it deserves. But that's going to do it for us tonight. We've been going at this about 2.5 hours, and I've gone over pretty much everything. If you are watching this live or after the fact, check out my Discord, links right above me. I now suspect a book to come out with lore on the Ardling. Actually, my thought was they're going to do something similar to the Turtle package. I think they're going to come out with a separate little thing that will be just the Ardling and its own lore, because they're not slated, unless it's released after the OneD&D updates and everything, where they include like celestial creatures. I don't see them doing a whole book on it, but I could see them doing like a supplement, like the Turtle package. But for those of you that are watching either live or after the fact, if you want to keep up with the community, things we do here on this channel, the link is right above me, but you can also you can click the Discord button down below my stream and join the Kelth's Corner community Discord. Over there, I post, it notifies you when I go live. There's also lots of folks over there talking about D&D and video games and whatnot. And speaking of which, video games, I'm going to be streaming the first 15 here in about 10-15 minutes or so. So if you are wanting to come back for that, feel free. I will be here and we'll be playing some fun video games. So thank you everybody for joining me tonight. As always, I love doing these. And also keep an eye out in the D&D and Chill channel over in the Discord here, probably within a day or so. I'm going to try and work on it tomorrow. I'm going to be posting my at a glance that I do with most of this OneD&D, where I go through and I outline the changes that have happened between old classes and new classes, between 5th edition and OneD&D. So I will be posting that over there probably tomorrow. So keep your eyes open for that, and we can continue talking about stuff. So thanks for joining me, everybody. You folks have a wonderful night, and I will see you next time. Peace out.